No! 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 Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you guys probably figured out from the intro, today I'm going to be reviewing the new Hunger Games novel of The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes by Suzanne Collins. It is a prequel to the original Hunger Games trilogy, and I'm really excited to talk about it because I binge read over the weekend. It took me 4 days, and I probably could have finished it faster if I hadn't had my own birthday over the weekend, and so I was a little bit distracted. I probably, as I said, I finished each third in a day except for the last third, which got caught up in birthdays, so that's my excuse for not getting this to you faster. But I have to just preface this. It is not the original books. People need to understand that. This is not about Katniss. This is not about any of the characters that we were super familiar with. This book is about the Hunger Games villain, President Snow. It's about him when he was 17 or 18 years old. So people need to be aware of that. People need to understand that this is, again, not the original characters. I know there's a lot of people that are like mad because why did we want to hear about President Snow? We really didn't want to hear about him. And I was a little bit, when I first heard what this book was going to be about, I was a little bit concerned with the fact that it was going to be about the main villain. There's been this trend of late of people that, you know, decided that they wanted to make villains be more sympathetic. They wanted to have a backstory so that we could sympathize with them and make us feel like, well, maybe they're not quite as bad as we thought. They're just like us. They go through the same problems. They just drew the wrong conclusions from those problems. And obviously that's not what we want from a villain. We just want to be able to hate those villains generally. We don't want to sympathize with somebody who thinks killing children is okay, for example. President Snow sent children into the Hunger Games to die as young as 12 and 13 years old. We don't want to think good thoughts about him. We don't want to think about him as a child and what made him tick. We don't want to feel sympathy for him in the least. Suzanne Collins really was walking a fine line when it came to creating this book. We didn't need some sappy feel-good story about here's how, you know, his dog died and then all of a sudden he woke up the next day and he was bad. To her credit, Suzanne Collins did not do that, and I was really pleased. I give the book a 4 out of 5 stars. My original ratings of the first 3 books were Hunger Games gets 5 stars, Catching Fire gets 5 stars, and Mockingjay gets 4 stars, because Mockingjay had to deal with a lot more darker issues, and I think that at times it may have gotten a little bit too depressing for the reader, and that's why Mockingjay is generally considered the least appealing of the 3. This book, I think, is also on the level with Mockingjay because it is so dark, and I'll get into that as I break down the content of the story. Before I do that, I'm going to spoiler alert because I know there are people who haven't read the book who probably want to be surprised. I know I am very glad I didn't have anything spoiled. I had very little knowledge of the plot. I didn't do a whole lot of research about it. And so I was very pleasantly surprised with some things, and I was shocked by some other things that happened. So if you guys don't want to have any spoilers, please don't watch any more of this video until you've finished reading the entire book. So here's what the book is about. President Snow is about 17, 18 years old. He's finishing what might be referred to as high school in the capital. His world has been devastated by the war. This happens 10 years after the war ends, so they are currently working towards the 10th Hunger Games. His family's income came from District 13, which was destroyed, so they have lost all of their savings trying to survive for the last 10 years. Having had all of their income destroyed. They're about to lose their apartment that they're living in. Him and his cousin, who I won't reveal her name, but she is an important character that didn't have a whole lot of development in the original Hunger Games, so you should go back and read Mockingjay if you want to hear more about that. But his cousin and his grandmother all live together in this apartment, and they are about to lose their apartment, and so his goal right from the beginning is he wants to get out of this situation. His name used to be revered. Now it is on the verge of being destroyed and mocked because of their current level of poverty, and if that gets out to more people than his immediate friends, then it could be scandalous to find out that they're in the financial situation that they're in. So his goal in life right now is to work really hard, get an education, get a really cushy job where he's making a ton of money so that he can help support his family and keep his last name of Snow from being tarnished with scandal and poverty. They've never had mentors for the Hunger Games so far. This is only the 10th Hunger Games. The senior class is going to be mentoring the tributes for the first time. And so each of the top 24 students in his class is given a tribute from one of the districts to be mentored by them. And ultimately it's revealed that whoever wins the Hunger Games with their tribute is going to end up getting a prize, which is revealed later on to be a full ride to the university. That's exactly what Snow wants. Prestige and power and the ability to raise himself up in the world. Ultimately, he does have his sights on the presidency, but it's kind of more of a lofty dream at this point, but not really a real thing that's likely to happen so far. But he is disappointed to find out that despite his high-standing family name, he finds out that instead of being given a likely to win tribute from Districts 1 and 2, or District 4, or even District 11, he is given the girl from District 12, and he is not happy about that. But just hearing that, I was all excited. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is obviously a reference to the originals, and this could lead into why he hates District 12 so much, and it could reveal things about why District 12 was in the situation that they were in compared to the other districts. We know that District 12 had a lot more lax security, especially during Katniss's years, and so it'll be interesting to find out if maybe they had lax security because of his connection to District 12. We don't know. So the girl tribute turns out to be a real personality, like the opposite of Katniss, which I think was a really smart way for Suzanne Collins to go, because it simplified her character significantly, and since we're trying to focus on Snow, it's important that the other characters aren't quite so complicated that we get distracted from Snow. Her character is outgoing, she's a singer, she likes to sing, she likes to perform, and so they play on that in order to win her sponsors and attention in the upcoming Hunger Games. So I'm not going to get into too much with the games outside of being kind of the setting that the story takes place in. It's not really as important to the story as a lot of the other elements. One of the elements being that there are still a lot of rebel sympathizers, including young men that wish that the war hadn't gone the way it had gone, that wish the war wasn't over, that would like to restart it, or at least run away and get away from the capital because they are tired of the oppression, and the capital is hitting them pretty hard with restrictions and everything from freedom of speech restrictions to you have a curfew at night and all this stuff. So they're not happy. And there's one kid in Snow's class who came from the districts who is very, very conflicted. His father is very wealthy and made a lot of money off of the war and continues to make money off of manufacturing weapons and so on and so forth. He is very uncomfortable with that, and he is conflicted. He is one of the more frustrating characters because I sympathize with his cause. I described him to my sister as he is basically a child waving a 2x4 hoping that he might hit the right thing at some point, and he's a very frustrating character. Again, well-written story, well-written characters, but I don't like the character personally, just because I like a little bit more clear-cut. He knows exactly what he needs to do, and he needs to make a decision, and this guy is just all over the place. Doesn't seem to know what he believes in or what he stands for, and he thinks he does, but he really doesn't know how to act on it. And so he's essentially just a child, really. He's a child who's been thrown into this situation where he's being encouraged to participate in the killing of children through the Hunger Games. He's given the mentorship of a boy who was in his class in elementary school. He's given the District 2 tribute, and he's very uncomfortable with that because they used to play together as children, and so there's a lot of that conflict going back and forth. He and Snow have this tentative friendship because Snow doesn't think of him as a friend, but he does kind of use him as a pawn and a way to gain favor with his wealthy father and to kind of essentially just use him. He uses him even though he doesn't actually care about him that much. It's an interesting dynamic between those two characters. That's Snow and Sejanus, the two characters. Basically, the way the story goes is Snow meets this doctor who is the real villain, who is the one who invented the creation of the mutts, and she runs this kind of science division of the Capitol. He seemingly gets on her bad side. He ultimately decides his best way to win the Hunger Games, since his tribute is so small, he decides the best way for them to win is to cheat. And so he cheats in order to help her win the Hunger Games, and she wins. And Snow is caught cheating in order to win the Hunger Games in the biggest shock of the book. Again, spoiler alert, if you guys don't want to know what happens, don't watch anymore. He gets punished by being made a peacekeeper and being shipped off to District 12 for a 20-year contract of being a peacekeeper. I was screaming at this point because what Suzanne Collins did that was so good was she actually made you care about this character. You cared about the fact that he was poor, and then the fact that he was trying to make something of himself, and he established this relationship with this girl from District 12, and he really started to like her, and he really started to care about her. And then all of a sudden, all of that ripped away because he cheated to save her life. Was it to save her life, or was it to profit? That's the question that you ponder throughout the book. Was it to save the girl's life, or was it to profit? And we find out by the end what the real answer is. So he gets shipped off to District 12, and he gets mixed up with some people in District 12. Ultimately, he murders the mayor's daughter, who is about to reveal his connections with Sejanus and Sejanus's ties to the rebels, and his deepest fear is that he's going to be caught and he's going to be executed. And he ultimately betrays Sejanus, his friend, because Sejanus is going to run away with the rebels, and Sejanus is hung for his crimes in, again, a very shocking and sad scene. Ultimately, Snow thinks he's going to get hung at this point for his connection to Sejanus and for the fact that he killed the mayor's daughter, who was threatening to reveal his connections with the rebels. He and the District 12 winner decide to run away together because she's being hunted by the mayor, who apparently was manipulated into putting her name in the Reaping for the Hunger Games, making that the name that was going to be the one pulled. The mayor is threatening her life, so she wants to get out. Snow has murdered someone, and so he wants to get out so that he can escape punishment. Both of them escape to the famous lake where Katniss used to spend time at during Catching Fire, and it was also a lake that they spent time at in Mockingjay. They escape to that lake, and they find the murder weapons have all been stowed there, and so Snow realizes that if he can hide those weapons, he can go back and he can, he's passed his officer's test. He can go back and have a good life and rise to the ranks that he wanted to rise through the military instead of through the university experience. He decides to do that, but then he realizes that his girlfriend, the District 12 winner, is the only other person that could reveal that he was there and that he killed the mayor's daughter. And also, she figures out that he betrayed Sejanus, who was also a friend of hers. She realizes this before he comes to this conclusion and runs away, and then he ends up chasing her through the woods with his guns to kill her, because he realizes that even if she didn't mean to betray him, she could be tortured into betraying him. There's all kinds of ways that she could ruin his life without even meaning to, and so he decides to do away with her in what is the darkest ending of any Hunger Games book I've ever read. He shoots at her. He's not sure if he hits her, although he does hear a scream. So it's not clear at the end. It's left ambiguous whether he kills her or not. He ends up going back to the districts. He gets promoted. He actually is brought back by the doctor, who says she's very pleased with how he's performed in District 12, and that this was essentially just a test for him to go through. He ultimately is basically adopted by Sejanus's parents, who don't know that he's the one who betrayed their son, but think that he was their son's best friend and know that he's in financial trouble, and so they end up making his life very cushy and nice for him, and then the doctor gives him a full ride to university. It, again, very dark, depressing ending, but it is so well written to make you care about this character that you're kind of devastated by the end. You're just like, he just threw it all away because he wanted power. That's my little overview of how the story went. I really enjoyed it. It kept me reading the entire time. Again, I don't do that with every book, but I read through in 4 days. I probably could have finished in 3. The biggest shock for me, the best part of the book, was when it was revealed that he was going to be made a peacekeeper, because it happens in just 2 paragraphs at the end of the second section of the book. I was just shocked. I was horrified because, again, The fact that Suzanne Collins took this evil character, distilled him down into an 18-year-old boy, and made me care about him for 2/3 of the book, and then ripped out the rug from under us, I was just mortified. I was screaming, I was yelling, oh my gosh, what is happening? No, this can't be happening. I lost sleep over this. And then for him to, at the end of the book, just give it all up. Power is more important to him than anything else, including this girl that he risked everything to save her life. Power is more important, and he threw it all away. That's pretty much where my conundrum comes in, because again, it's exceptional writing, it's fantastic, it's a wild ride, but also it just brings you down for this crash at the end that I think a lot of fans might be a little bit disappointed with, because it's not a feel-good story. It's got the excitement of the Hunger Games in the first 2 parts, and then it's just devastating at the end in the way that Mockingjay was. It's almost like distilling down the first 3 books into 1 book. The thing I don't like about it is the fact that it is so dark. It's also the thing I like about it, because you had to reveal how Snow became the monster that he is, but you also have the struggle because it's not a feel-good book. So my real critique, I guess, is, was this the best route for her to take? Was revealing the past of President Snow really the right road to take when making a prequel? Would it have been more interesting to have another district take the forefront of the conversation? That was something that I would have liked to have seen. Instead of going to District 12, I would have liked for him to have gone to a district that we really don't know much about, or to have some new element brought to it besides District 12 being the focus constantly. Maybe we'll get that in upcoming books, because I have a feeling that this is not going to be the last Hunger Games book. They're just such, major money makers. There's just no way that there's not going to be more books. So I guess my real question is, was President Snow, was his past worth exploring? And I think it was. And also, does it give the audience, that satisfaction of, this is the District 12 and the Pan Am and the Hunger Games that we came to know and care about? It really isn't, because it's about the Capitol. It's about, the snobs in the Capitol and their perspective on things, which is interesting, but again, depressing, and we kind of just live to hate these characters, or many of them. The characters that we like tend to get killed because they're in the districts. Let me know what you guys thought of these books, and especially this new one, in the comments below. If you like this video, please like it, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell for notifications. I will continue with some reviews of the movies and upcoming books, and let you guys know what I think is in store in the future. And I might even do a follow-up video, because I'm probably going to read the book again just to see what my perspective is after a second reading. If it changes, feel free to let me know in the comments what you guys thought, and I will see you guys on the next episode.